The secrets of the pyramid. Birth of the pyramid. The search for Imhotep. Architect Imhotep, but he was far more than just an architect. He was the royal physician who would later be deified by the Greeks and Roman as Aesculapius, the god of healing. He was the vizier, the equivalent of the prime minister of Egypt, the greatest nation on earth. He was the Leonardo da Vinci of Egypt, the first recorded genius in history. He also had the puzzling title of Maker of Stone. Imhotep lived at the beginning of Egypt's recorded history, at the time when Egypt was just realizing its greatness. The pharaoh he served was King Sosa. Egypt dominated the Near East for two reasons, the pharaoh and the Nile, the more obvious being the Nile. Each year the Nile overflowed its banks, depositing rich, dark topsoil, fertilizing the land. With this gift, Egypt could grow more crops than were needed to feed its population of about 1 million. With all this food, Egypt could afford a professional standing army. Other countries had to make up their armies from farmers, carpenters, and whoever else could be rounded up when it was time to fight. Egypt had its army ready and waiting. No country could withstand such an army. So each year, the Egyptian army marched out, terrorized other countries, and returned home with anything that wasn't nailed down. War was a significant part of the Egyptian economy, and the Nile made this possible. But the Egyptians had yet another advantage over neighboring countries, the pharaoh. Ancient Egypt was originally divided into two segments, Upper and Lower Egypt. Then sometime around 3200 BC, a king from the south, named Numa, marched north, defeated the northern king, and unified Egypt into the first nation in history. The story of Numa's conquest is told on Egypt's equivalent of the Magna Carta, the Numa palette. Carved from a single piece of slate, the palette is about 2 feet high and 3 inches thick. On the first side, Numa is shown wearing the white crown of the south as he defeats his northern counterpart. On the lip side, Numa leads a triumphal parade and wears the red crown of the north. He is the first king of both Upper and Lower Egypt, symbolizing this unification. The palette shows two mythological creatures with their long necks intertwined. Egypt is a single nation and Numa is its king. For 3,000 years, the icon of Egypt would be the pharaoh, smiting his enemy, just as it appeared on the Numa palette. From this point on, Egypt would have a king as its ruler, but not an ordinary king. Unlike other kings of the ancient Near East, Egyptian pharaohs were gods. Pharaohs had the title king of Upper and Lower Egypt, but they were also son of Re, the sun god. Never had such power been concentrated in the hands of one man. Even the calendar revolved around the pharaoh. When a new pharaoh was crowned, the calendar began a new day 1, year 1 of the reign of Sesostris. When Sesostris died, the calendar was reset, day 1, year 1 of the reign of Imhotep. So when Imhotep began building a tomb for his pharaoh, he was in a unique position. Not only was he the royal architect, but he was also the prime minister of the wealthiest nation on the planet. He had all the money he needed and didn't have to worry about the approval of committees. If the pharaoh wanted it, it would be built. The only limit was his imagination, and the brilliant Imhotep conceived of something totally new, a building in stone. Like his ancestors, Sosa was going to be buried beneath the ground with a huge mastaba above the burial chamber, but his mastaba was not going to be mud brick. It would be stone, the first significant stone building in history. As the mastaba grew, Imhotep gained confidence in his ability to build in stone and increased its size. Then came his second big idea. He would place another mastaba on top of the first, and then another, and then 3 more, creating the step pyramid of Saqqara, the world's first pyramid. At 240 feet high, it is as tall as a modern 25-story building, its base covering 5 acres. Probably 10 times taller than any other structure in Egypt, it must have been a source of pride for the entire nation. Remember, this was a country where even the king lived in a mud brick palace. Then, all of a sudden, a huge stone building rises out of the desert. It must have been incredible. The outward forces. With all the stones angled towards the center of the pyramid, it is literally leaning in on itself. The second indication that Imhotep was just learning how to build in stone is the size of the blocks. They weigh less than 100 pounds each, small compared with the 2-ton blocks that would be used in the Great Pyramid. Imhotep and his workers had not yet figured out how to move and lift massive stones, they were just feeling their way. The blocks look like giant mud bricks, only carved in stone. The Egyptians were imitating what they knew and were used to. The step pyramid does not stand alone in the desert. Imhotep built a virtual city in stone for Sosa, complete with chapels, houses, statues, literally a petrified city. The pyramid complex is surrounded by a stone enclosure wall 20 feet high. Every few yards a false door was cut into the wall to look like a door, but there's only one real entrance. When you step through this entrance, there are signs all around that you are at the birthplace of building in stone. Most tourists don't see it, you have to know what to look for. You walk into a long hallway, but really you are inside a stone model of what an ancient palace built of wood and reeds looked like. Above your head, the ceiling sculpted in stone imitates the wooden beams of a palace. To the left and right of you are huge doors 12 feet high and 8 feet wide, complete with hinges, but they will never swing shut. They are constructed of stone blocks. Think of giant Legos and you won't be very wrong. As you continue into Sosa's pyramid complex, you walk between 2 rows of stone columns, carved to look like bundles of papyri. Look closely and you will see that these columns are not freestanding, they are engaged, attached to the walls. Imhotep probably wasn't sure if stone columns could stand alone. Imhotep conceived many innovations for his pharaoh's burial place. The most puzzling is called the Southern Burial. A quarter of a mile south of the step pyramid is a second burial chamber for Sosa. It is not a pyramid, and today just looks like a deep hole in the ground. A shaft leads to a single burial chamber carved in the bedrock. Here 2 beautiful blue-green ceramic tiles decorate the walls, and there are scenes of Sosa running in the Hebst festival, but the chamber is really too small for a burial. Some have suggested that Sosa had 2 tombs, one northern, one southern, to emphasize that he was king of both Upper and Lower Egypt. The southern one was a cenotaph, a false burial